Eagles. Eagles.
Welcome in, JAKIB Nation. I'm Zander Krause, and this is the JAKIB Pregame Show, your go-to for everything Eagles, as we lead you into the Week 7 action. Today it's a classic NFC East showdown. Big Sills, the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Football Giants. It's all on the line
Always
today.
a great rival. Always a great
Yes.
rival. Zander, when I was a kid growing up, probably for you, man, obviously it's Cowboys and Eagles, but for me growing up, with my uncle's affiliation with the Giants, it's always been Giants and Eagles for me. And that was always the big rivalry was between those two. I remember as a kid, one of my first memories was Joe Pisarcik dropping the ball in the end zone, Herm Edwards picking that bitch up, and then taking it back at the end of the game. And I've talked with Merrill Reese about that moment numerous times. One of my first memories of that rivalry was that play in the Meadowlands. So I've always taken this as one of the great rivalries of all time, man. So I love this rivalry. NFC East battle should be a very interesting game, by the way, at MetLife.
Yes, it will, and we will talk about all that. That's Dan Sileo, host of the National Football Show, a 1987 national champion of the Miami Hurricanes, starter on that defensive line. Great to have him. We'll have John McMullen joining us as well from MetLife Stadium right around 12:15 a.m. Eastern time. So we will talk to Johnny Mac coming up here. We'll break down the game today. We'll give you the latest injury updates, the key matchups. As Dan just said, this is no walk in the park today, Big Sills. I think this Giants team is a little bit underrated. We'll get into it. Let's start with the Eagles' offensive side of the ball today, Sills. But when I talk about offense, you'd think I'd say, okay, let's talk Saquon, let's talk AJ, let's talk Jalen. We'll get there. The first things first, though, you got to block that Giants D-line. They lead the league right now in sacks, and Jordan Mailata's out for 4 games minimum. He was placed on the IR this week. Big Sills, coming into this game, what's your game plan to take those dudes out of it? Because those dudes have been wrecking games all year long.
How about this too, Xander? It's not just one guy that's going to be off that old line in Jordan Mailata. It's also Dallas Goedert, who's considered one of the best blocking tight ends in the NFL, who takes a lot of heat off those offensive tackles for the Eagles. That if you've got an edge rusher out there, many times Dallas Goedert can take that guy single-handedly by himself. Now you've got Fred Johnson out there. Are you going to stick in? Calcaterra's not a blocking tight end. He's a pass-catching tight end. So what are you actually going to do to compensate for that? I would expect to see. Now, again, you have to remember that we're talking about the coordinators and Nick Sirianni here with the offense, and what they may do and what they should do are two different things. I look at that, for me, if you want to stop a fast pass rush down, quick passes, slants, early screens to Barkley, get him going in the game, because you do not want to get those guys humming off the football. Because, again, Brian Burns against Fred Johnson, dude, that's not a matchup you're looking for. So you probably want to see a lot of not sitting back in the pocket. What's the worst thing Hurts does? The worst thing that Hurts does is hold the ball too long in the pocket. That's not what you want to do with a team that's leading the National Football League in sacks.
No doubt, and you bring up a great point, right? It's easy to say, okay, Jordan Mailata's out, let's go to 12 personnel. Well, you're missing the best blocking tight end, arguably one of the best blocking tight ends in the league in Dallas. Got a great point there by Big Sills. Saquon returns today. A lot of hype on the Saquon Barkley. You just mentioned him there. And by the way, I'll point out, the Eagles were running at practice this week, Sills. Now it's just practice, but they had Jalen Hurts under center, taking some snaps from under center. Maybe we'll see a little bit of that today. You talk about the need to get the ball out quick. But Saquon Barkley, let's talk about him, man. Returning to MetLife Stadium today, his first time there as a visitor. What do you expect from him today?
You know, I expect the New York Giant fans to probably revere him and then revile him, which they'll do just like every other place in the Northeast. They're probably going to give him his respect on what he brought to the team, knowing that the team didn't have a lot of components around him. And you know what, Xander? I'll say this, man. I was completely wrong about the guy. I thought he'd be a marginal impact. I know Johnny Mack even said that too. What we're talking about here with his impact, but he has been spectacular so far. You know, maybe not the best game this past game against the Cleveland Browns. Missed that block, obviously, and, you know, didn't have really one of his better games. But all in all, he has been sensational so far this year. And now with all that personnel he has, him going back to Giant Stadium, I got to tell you, man, once a Giant, always a Giant. That's the motto there. You know, he now wears Eagle green, and he is going to want to show them, and Joe's shown that they made a mistake. I got to tell you, Xander, I don't think this is about anything with the fans. This is more about the organization, and most notably the general manager lying to him. We all saw it play out in Hard Knocks. I mean, and he went on a podcast. I can't remember which podcast he went on, but he said he knew right then and there when he said, give us a chance to match the deal. He knew right then and there he was never going back to New York. So I think he wants to go back to New York. And if that were me, let me put myself in his position. You go back with a great football, talented roster like you have in Philadelphia, and especially on the offensive side that he's going to be a part of. And you go back and you show New York what it could have looked like if you had put that team together around him the same way that Howie Roseman and the Eagles had put an offense around him and Jalen Hurts. That's what that could have looked like. They never did that in New York. Dave Gettleman was a complete disaster as a general manager. And on top of that, now you have Joe Schoen, who, you know, at first, Xander, I didn't think he was doing a very good job, but you kind of see the water settling a little bit with New York's roster. I mean, you said it. They're not horrible. They've showed improvement this year. They lose their top left offensive tackle, one of the best, if not the best in the left side of the football in the NFC East. But their offensive line, especially inside, got a little bit better. The quarterback is playing just as good a passing season as Jalen Hurts has played. I mean, everyone looks at Danny Dimes and goes, this guy sucks. Well, Hurts is playing at his level right now. And then they get Malik Neighbors, who is a playmaking guy. That's going to be an interesting matchup today and what they do. Are they going to put Quinyon Mitchell on him? Are they going to move him around? You said last week, I think late in the week, you told me you were saying, nope, they're going to keep him on one side of the field. Well, that could be a mismatch, especially if they start moving him around the offense.
Yeah, we'll see what they do. And you bring up a good point about Joe Schoen. I think he's actually done a decent job. I mean, remember, Eagle fans love splash signings. You let Saquon go and everybody criticizes you. That's not a team ready to pay a running back. He improved the offensive line this year. Now Andrew Thomas is out this game, and that defensive line is one of the best in the NFL. So he's done a good job. And then I'll point this out to you too, Sells, because if you're a New York Giant fan, I think it all comes down to Daniel Jones, right? And remember the Maras. The Maras watched Eli Manning struggle early on in his career and then lead that franchise to two Super Bowl rings. Daniel Jones has showed flashes here and there. I think they're going to be more patient with him than fans will.
And by the way, don't go to sleep on one thing with the quarterback. He's as fast as Hurts.
Oh,
if not faster.
I mean, he's a dual threat running back. He is
a very, very sneaky, fast guy that, again, if they let him get going, you know, Jones can hurt you, okay? He can hurt you. I'm not saying, again, that this guy's going to rip you apart in the air, but he could do multiple things to you, especially if you're not playing stout defense, which, again, the Eagle defense has been up and down all season long.
Yep, no doubt about it. And we'll see how they show up today. Big Sills, let's talk about A.J. Brown. You know, we talk about the impact that player has on this team over and over again. He's only played in 2 games this season. He's eclipsed 100 yards in both of those 2 games. If you talk about the Giants trying to maybe limit Saquon for the sake of the owner and the GM's job, what kind of game could A.J. Brown have today versus the Giants?
Oh, I think he's going to have a big one because I think the number one priority is going to be stopping Barkley.
Yep.
Because to me, I want Hurts to beat me because I don't believe he can. Or he gives me the best chance to beat that Eagle team is to stop the run game. And that's what Cleveland almost did. Remember something. Cleveland didn't do anything special last week, Xander. They played up to their numbers, or I should say down to their numbers in what they were doing all year. The Eagle defense didn't do anything special except keep them out of the end zone, which they've done a nice job this year at. Red zone defense, by the way, too. But in my opinion, again, I mean, it was a 4-point ball game going into the fourth quarter against a really crappy Cleveland Brown team. So for me, again, those guys are always going to get their numbers. But Xander, think about this last year. And let's just go into it because this team looks a lot like last year. Those guys got their numbers last year too, and they lost ball games. So, I mean, if I am the Giant defensive coordinator and I'm the defensive coaches, let them get their numbers, dude. Let them get their numbers because at the end of the game, just because A.J. Brown and Devontae had numbers last week, right? Well, at the end of the day, they still only won by 4.
Right.
So I want them to get their numbers. I just don't want explosion plays.
Yeah, so we'll see how the Giants are able to mitigate that. Big Sills coming off the first game, I think in 9 games, I think it was for Jalen last week. He had a turnover-free football game. What are the keys for Jalen Hurts to have success in this game? I think turnover-free is the biggest one. What do you see for Jalen Hurts today?
Adding this into it, decision-making, okay? Decision-making. Don't make the poor play. It's not about the spectacular play. It's about the poor play. His games have been dictated by bad moments, haven't they? I mean, some people can look at Jalen Hurts' career and go, dude, they've been defined by bad moments. Almost none of it really by bad play. The Super Bowl, the fumble, the turnovers now. Those are bad plays, but then you sprinkle in some of the really fine stuff that he did. Last week, again, it was the Browns. So what? He still played. 260 passing, 33, 35 yards rushing, no turnovers. He was effective in the passing game. He got the ball to his 2 wide receivers. That's a clean game. Kind of Zander, that's who that guy is. 250, 235, 50 yards rushing. The 14 carries are a little high, but hey, I've told you this before. I'm going to run that 3-year-old pony as far as I possibly can, and I'm going to try to win as many Triple Crowns as I possibly can with this horse. And if it breaks down, it breaks down. Run that guy, because I fear Jalen Hurts more in the run game than I do in the passing game. Because when he is out there like that and runs the ball the way he does, that is a dual threat guy that's a very difficult cover.
No doubt. I want to thank everybody for being here this morning on the JAKIB Pregame Show. We appreciate each and every one of you in the chat. I see all of you guys. We'll get to our super chats in a little bit. Coming up in right around 15 minutes, we'll be joined by John McMullen live from MetLife Stadium. He is down in the Meadowlands, and he will join us on the show from the stadium. Big Sills, I'll say this about the Eagles offense. And I know that we've been critical, and many fans have been critical. You're talking about a $175 million offense that doesn't quite look like it should. I thought there were some things to build on last week that were overshadowed by the head coach. And I'll say this. Eagles are averaging right now 367 yards a game. It's good for 10th in the NFL. Factor in you've been missing Lane Johnson, you missed Devontae Smith for a game and a half, and you missed A.J. Brown for 3 of those games. This offense has some things there that I think they can build on, so they're not as bad as maybe it looks at some point. I think they're going to have to have an offensive game today to beat this Giants team. I mean, it's a tough matchup when you're talking about the best defensive line and a quarterback right now that's bottom of the league in terms of getting the ball out quickly. Jalen Hurts had 3.1, 3.2 seconds to throw this year. They're going to have to get that ball out quick and really rely on their offensive firepower.
Well, I'm going to one more time say this about the coordinators, pretty much on both sides of the football here. I think, yeah, you look at the numbers that the Eagles have had, it looks like last year. It's situational play calling that's gotten them in trouble, whether it's late in the half, going into halftime, or it's late in ball games, or it's critical plays and critical moments that you have too many voices. And we said this last week on the National Football Show, is that I think that Nick Sirianni and the rest of the coaching staff offensively, there's too many voices in Kellen Moore's ear, or I should say that are in Nick Sirianni's ear talking to Kellen Moore as they convey it to the quarterback. You've got too many people making decisions. And by the way, the first 25-play script that they have is garbage. I mean, what they do is it's the worst part of the game for them so far in the first 5 games. And get this, that's the time when these guys do all of their due diligence on figuring out how to start the game fast. This is a brain thrust that is sitting there. Think about that, Zander. 5 days, you come up with the crappiest 25 plays that has resulted in 0 points. 0 points. They're better, actually, when they go off script. Okay? Once they get off that first 25, then it looks like it settles down some more. So it's going to be interesting to see how they get going and whether or not we see 3 and outs. What's the one thing that Tampa Bay did that absolutely ended any chances the Eagles winning that game? If New York gets a 14 or 20-point lead on them, the Eagles have no chance of coming back in that football game. They're not a come-from-behind team. They have not shown that propensity yet to come from behind when they're down by a big number like that. Tampa Bay ran them off the field. Yeah. People go, well, they didn't have their key guys. Your entire offense shouldn't shut down. And your quarterback shouldn't look as pathetic as he did in that Buck game when you lose one guy. Do you know what that is? That's an indictment that your quarterback is not an elite player.
That's a fair point right there. And you talk about them not being built to play from behind. They're actually built the opposite way. They're built to get the lead early, and that's why you see them come out and throw go routes on first down, which drive me crazy. Big Sills, simple question right here. Will the Philadelphia Eagles score a point in the first quarter today?
No. You know why? They haven't shown a propensity to be able to do it.
Yeah.
Now, how about this? Maybe a field goal? They
That's
score.
a point. That's more than they've got all year.
Right. But do I think they score a touchdown? No, I don't. Because, again, they're going to want to throw the ball. Here's why. It's set up because the secondary of the New York Giants is really kind of the biggest weakness that they have in that secondary.
Yeah, I think they're missing a couple guys. We'll get the update from John on the inactive list, and we'll get that at 12:15. But I think they're missing some guys back there. I know Adoree Jackson's out.
But you know what the Eagles are missing? They're missing the third best left tackle in the game, maybe the fifth best tight end when healthy in the game. That's a big number there that you have to have backup guys going. I wonder what will happen too if Brian Burns gets off and he starts eating. Will they end up in game switching Micaiah Becton out to that tackle position and put Steen at the right guard spot? That's also something to keep an eye on because, hey, they have one of the best interior defensive linemen in the National Football League. And I didn't know that Dexter Lawrence had 7 sacks already.
I know. It's unbelievable, man.
Those tackles, dude, if they get 5, that's an all-pro year, which he's
that's not what they're built on. Their stats don't revolve
they're built on the perimeter. That's why they got Burns and Thibodeau, who I know is on injured reserve right now, and he's not playing in this game. But they're built on getting pressure from the interior. You know what Lawrence's job is? To make sure that the quarterback can't step up in the pocket. Instead, he's getting sacks in the middle. That is going to be 2 areas to watch. Cam Jurgens on Lawrence and Fred Johnson on Burns. If they get pressure and they start forcing him right, you're going to play right into the Giants' defense.
Yeah, it's true.
Believe me, man, that's something to watch today. The 2 matchups, Cam Jurgens versus Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns versus Fred Johnson.
Yep, combined 10 sacks between those two guys. Brian Burns up to 3, and as Sileo pointed out, Dexter Lawrence, 7 sacks already. That dude is playing like a man on a mission. Eagles are going to have to take him out of the game today. Big Cells, let's move to the Eagles' defensive side of the ball before we get up to Johnny Mack here, 12:15. He will join us. Front 4 got going a little bit last week, Cells. Now, I know it's the Brown, but they registered 5 sacks. They had 10 QB hits on Deshaun Watson last week. I think they're going to have a another big week this week. Giants star left tackle Andrew Thomas out for the season, his first week out. So the Eagles are going to have to take advantage of that. What do you expect from that front 4 today for the Birds?
I want to see some consistency. Follow up a good performance, what you did against the Browns, with another one. They haven't been consistent all year long, especially the 2 interior guys, and the edge rushers haven't been. The one thing that we saw with Vic Fangio that I thought was very encouraging was that he brought more pressure against the Browns because he knew that quarterback was struggling. The difference here with Daniel Jones and with a guy like Deshaun Watson is struggling mentally. Daniel Jones doesn't struggle mentally. Okay, he knows where to go with the ball. They just don't have the talent. Now they got Malik Neighbors, as we mentioned. They got a pretty decent tight end. The issue that the Giants have, dude, they can't run the ball to save their life. Jones is really their running game. So you've got to figure out how to contain him and how to keep him in the pocket. What you don't want to do is to have Daniel Jones getting out in the perimeter where you can't set the edge. In my opinion, you're going to see a lot of design runs to try to break those edges down. I would not be shocked today, Zander, if Daniel Jones has 15 carries today. And they're going to be a lot of design runs because they got to get a run game going if they're going to have play action pass. That Eagle defense, to me, still, I mean, Malik Neighbors versus Quinyon Mitchell. I mean, man, Neighbors looks like an outstanding talent.
Yeah, he looks.
I think Mitchell looks good too. But if they're not going to move him and they're not going to shadow him and they're going to keep him on one side of the field, well, shit, I'm going to go away from their best player. I'm going to put him in a matchup that I'm going to be able to win. And if Isaiah
Rodgers, like him on Slay more than you like him on Quinyon?
Yeah, because Slay's coming off an injury here too, and I want to test that and see how healthy
Slay's not as physical.
Right. And I'm going to put him on him, and I'm going to play on Slay because, one, he's been injured for the last 2 weeks. He's aging right now. And you got a young Turk here who I think is a pretty damn good football player. We'll see what happens here. But again, the 2s and the 3, I think they're functional. It's going to be interesting to see how that secondary covers and how that linebacking core works.
Interesting stuff. We'll get to John McMullen coming up in about 6 or 7 minutes. Before I do that, let's get to a couple of our super chats today as we preview now for the Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Football Giants. By the way, for those enjoying the sports of the weekend, a great sports weekend so far this weekend. Big Sills, Yankees headed back to the World Series, a tremendous series there. I don't want to get too in the weeds, but it's been a great sports weekend.
Absolutely. I was thinking for you, really? Tennessee knocking off Alabama?
Yeah. So you don't replace Nick Saban. I've now accepted that we could be living in the land of mediocrity for a very long time until we find a replacement for
Coach DeBoring is probably got a hot seat.
I'm calling him DeBust. DeBoer or DeBust. He is on DeBust watch. Let's go to our super chats. We don't wipe. He says, Big Sills, how about them Cowboys? We can't lose this week. Cowboys on a bye week, so they will not be losing this week.
Good for you, man.
Yeah, 304. Appreciate it, brother. Brian checks in. Hurtsy boy gets benched today. The Wildcat QB can leave me squad. Sirianni gets fired today, fellas. Today's loss will be a step in the right direction. Brian, I will not join you. I will not call for a loss, Brian.
Hey, Brian, if they lose this football game and Monday shows up, let me say this to you, man. Nick Sirianni, whoa. Then get this. If they do lose, and this will be a very tough game, it shouldn't be, but it will be because the Eagles are not consistent yet. If they lose this football game, you're going to see a lot of the media people completely, and almost all the media people turn on him and demand that this guy get fired, because you cannot have a $200 million offense and go nowhere. You can't keep blaming the assistant coaches. How many coordinators are you going to rotate in and out before you realize it's the quarterback and the coach? And I'll tell you this too, Zander. If the coach does get fired this year, the quarterback's next.
Quarterback and coach, or quarterback and organization?
The quarterback's first. If he gets fired, the quarterback's next.
Yeah, no, you're right.
And then moving off
the
him.
Coach will be first. My question to you would be: do the problems lie as much on Nick Sirianni as we believe they do, or are they on the organization?
Yeah,
I believe.
No, it's the three-headed monster, Zander.
Right.
It's what you have. Hey, Zander, I'll say it one more time, and I say this on the National Football Show all the time. Okay, you don't have the right head coach and quarterback. I don't care what kind of talent you have in your huddle. You just don't.
No, it's a fair point. And by the way, Jalen Carter will play today. Kyle, appreciate you putting that in there. We'll get John McMullen up in a couple of minutes, and he'll give us the update on all the inactives. Eagles inactive list did come out. Nothing popping off the page there. Tanner McKee, Eli Ricks, Darian Kennard, Trevor Keegan, Byron Young, and then Dallas Goedert. And then Jordan Mailata was moved to IR. So he'll miss 4 games minimum for Jordan Mailata. So we're going to have to figure out a couple games here, 4 games straight here. We'll have to figure out how to play without Mailata. Jason A-Team checks in. He says, what's good, JAKIB family? What's up, Jason? Appreciate you, brother. He said, let's go Birds. Been waiting for a divisional game. This game is a toss-up, though. I think we win 24-20. Good score there, Jason. I like that score. That's a solid score. Eagles offense hasn't really been humming. I don't know if they'll put up 30 today, and that Giants defense isn't so bad. Big Sills, your response to Jason A-Team.
I think it's going to be a close game too. I mean, it's funny. I tried to tell people on the National Football Show that, you're probably going to be in the same position that Kansas City was in a year ago. Remember at the beginning of the year, Kansas City was wobbling in and out. You didn't know what they looked like. They didn't look like they were a playoff team. And all of a sudden they go into Arrowhead and the Raiders end up stomping them there. Well, guess what? That's where you are. You're either going to get better by the midway point of the season, both defensively and offensively, and playing championship football in January and December and January, or you're going to look like you did a year ago. We're going to find out soon. It's too early to know what the direction of the unit's going to be, because you saw the same thing last year. Here's what you saw last year. Xander, 2 different football teams. Is it going to be a complete team? Are you going to be getting better by the end of the year? Here's what happened a year ago. They were really good at the beginning of the year, and they were awful at the end of the year. So what were you really at the end? You were basically a 500 football team. And so where are you going to be this year? I think you've got a below 500, bottom 5 defense. Will it get better? Are you hoping to get near 18, 17, 16, somewhere in there? Because if you get to the middle of the pack, that means the defense improved. Remember something about this defense, too, of a year ago. Secondary was 30th or 31st a year ago. The year before that, you were second. This has to get into where you have to get pressure and keep contained, in my opinion.
Let's get to one more super chat, then we'll get to John McMullen live from MetLife Stadium, and we'll get the update on Sidney Brown from John, who I do believe is set to make his debut for the season today, Sidney Brown. John says, I've talked about the Giants and the Eagles all offense, all offseason for 2 years in this chat, and Jones has Josh Allen capabilities. He's just hurt, and I said he was better than Hurts, and he does more. I don't know if I want to go there on Daniel Jones, John, but appreciate the super chat.
But I will say this, what John says. If Saquon Barkley, let me ask you this before we get John on. Well, if Saquon Barkley struggled with the lack of talent, Zander, in New York, why wouldn't you give the same benefit of the doubt that Daniel Jones struggled in New York?
Yeah, we're right here in Philly. We give excuses for Jalen Hurts when there's no AJ Brown on the field.
If you want to make an excuse for Barkley not having great talent in New York, don't you make the same excuse for Daniel Jones? And by the way, I'm no Daniel Jones guy here. I'm just saying, I think you got to go across the board here.
No doubt. Let's get to our man, John McMullen. Andrew Hernandez puts in Sidney playing. That's going to be one of our first questions here, Andrew, for Johnny Mac. Let's go to the man from MetLife Stadium, Johnny Mac, joining us live on the JAKIB Pregame Show. Johnny Mac, welcome in, brother. What's the scene down at MetLife Stadium? A nice day for football, it looked like, Johnny Mac.
Yeah, I don't think I've ever been here, and I've been here about 50 times, I think. It's always gray. It's always miserable. It's actually a sunny, nice day at MetLife Stadium, which is rare, at least for us. Every time we come, the stadium is gray, everything's gray, and the sun is out to the point you can't even see your computer screen. So good day for football here in North Jersey.
Wait a minute there. So 16W, there's actually sun in New Jersey? I'm stunned, John.
Exactly. Very rare, Dan. At least in our history, obviously, there's occasionally nice days, but it seems every time the Eagles come here, whether it's the Giants or the Jets, it's always a gray, miserable day. Yeah.
Johnny Mac, let's get the update on the inactives list. I know it came out. Nothing really popped for me on the Eagles side, but what is the update for the inactives for both teams today?
Well, the big news, the Giants had questionables on both Dexter Lawrence and Brian Burns, so they're going to play. They were trying to manage them through the week, and that's obviously two of their biggest stars on defense, arguably their two biggest stars on defense. So both of those are going to play. The same thing with, obviously, Dallas Goedert was already ruled out, so that's the main one for the Eagles that's not going to play the game. But Darius Slay, who was questionable coming in, is going to play, is going to start at corner. Sidney Brown is active for the first time, so he'll make his return to the same field that nobody likes to play on, where he tore his ACL in Week 18 last season. So as far as his role, I expect mainly on special teams. I don't think they're going to throw him into the mix that quickly on the defensive side of the football. But it'll be good to see Sidney Brown back out there.
Go ahead, Sills.
Yeah, John, what are we expecting for Quinyon Mitchell covering Malik Neighbors? Are we going to see him shadow him, in your opinion? Or do you think that they're going to have him just based on one side? Or are they going to move him across and they're going to have him single cover him the entire game? Or how are they going to do that? Or are they going to stay in that two deep zone, that two eye safety, get the guys off the ball again? Because, again, that makes for pitch and catch again, John. And the Neighbors looks like he is somebody that's going to be formidable in this league for years to come here. He looks like a player.
Yeah, if the Eagles are ever going to travel, and they're rarely going to travel, they're just going to keep guys on each side. But it's going to be Slay. If anybody travels, it's going to be Slay, not Quinyon Mitchell. So Quinion will stay on his side. And that, yeah, you have a point. If you're from the, if Brian Daboll wants to match him up against Quinion Mitchell, it's easy to do. That's one of the things that's a problem with this defense, because they're not going to move their corners around much. But when they do, the rare times they do, it's going to be Darius Slay. And then even then, Slay doesn't travel inside. So there's some limitations to it. But yeah, Quinion's not at that point. They don't want him at that point. Last week when Slay went out, he got asked, "Did you travel with Amari Cooper?" The answer was no. He stays on to his side. That's not going to change. So he's not going to be traveling with Malik Neighbors, and I would be surprised if Darius Slay is. So, but if one of the two was going to, it would definitely be Slay.
Hey, Zander, let me ask him one last question here on this one too. What kind of help are they going to give Fred Johnson? Because again, looks like Brian Burns matched up against him on that side. Do you think you're going to see more max protection? Because again, Grant Calcaterra is not known for his blocking. So do they go more max protection on trying to give as much help as they possibly can to the pocket by putting max protection? Could you see two tight end sets in this ball game, John? Because again, they are number one in pass rushing and sacks in the NFL coming into this ball game. I know both those guys are banged up. Lawrence has got 7 sacks so far this year. And if you think about it, really the matchups of Cam Jurgens and Fred Johnson to keep an eyeball on. How do you think they protect those guys?
Yeah, I think with Slay, Jack Stoll would be the guy. And interesting, everybody talks about the Saquon revenge game. I think this is more of a revenge game for Jack Stoll than it is for Saquon. It kind of brushed it off. But Jack Stoll was like, yeah, kind of, he thought there were some promises made that weren't kept. And he's a little bit fired up for this game. But he's obviously the Eagles' best blocking tight end. He'll be the one doing most of the help. Grant Calcaterra is more of the receiving type, as you mentioned. Had a big game when Dallas went out earlier, at least for him. So I think that's how it's interesting. They didn't elevate a third tight end, and they do like to play a lot of 12 personnel. So that was a little bit of a surprise. Now, you might have Johnny Wilson playing a glorified tight end to be sort of at least in the middle type piece to get that extra body, because I often say, personnel groupings, it's just labeling. Somebody's playing like a tight end, but they're not a tight end. That's called 11 personnel. So, the labeling might say 11, but it might be a glorified different look with Johnny Wilson. That's why I think the Eagles went the way they did. You mentioned helping Fred Johnson. They should help Fred Johnson. Will they help Fred Johnson? I don't think they will early. And maybe that's something to keep an eye on early in the game, where the Giants might have an opportunity to get home. All of a sudden, if you create a strip sack from Brian Burns or something of that nature, maybe the Eagles tighten it up. But this next man mentality, you saw it last week when they left Fred Johnson on an island with Myles Garrett. Now it was a go route, and it was too quick for Myles to get home, but it could have been ugly. And I think sometimes the Eagles don't look at that and say, all right, we don't have Jordan Mailata in there, so we need to help Fred Johnson a little bit more. I think they'll learn that throughout the game, but will they come out that way? I'm not so sure.
I'm not either. And the question for me would be, will they take a page out of the Buccaneers book, John, and look to get that ball out of Jalen Hurts' hands quickly? You're missing your star left tackle, and the Giants' pass rush is one of the best in the league, leading the NFL right now in sacks. The common sense approach, John, would say, get that ball out quick. The Eagles were running Jalen Hurts under center at practice this week. Will they do it, John, or will they stick to their guns in the shotgun all day?
Yeah, they're not going to play from under center. I don't know who told you that, but
no, they were doing it at practice. That's why I was wondering. Maybe it's an option.
Well, we don't get to see team drills at practice, so I don't know who's telling you that. But
it was Chris Franklin shared out a video of it, Johnny Mac.
Well, that might have been during individual work, but that doesn't. Yeah, I mean, he's under center in the tush push, for instance. I'm talking about substantive, being under center, play action, that type of thing. You ask, will they get the ball out of their hands quickly? Well, their quarterback is Jalen Hurts, so my answer is going to be no. He's going to hold on to the football. He's going to look to extend plays. He's not going to turn in. We say it all the time, Sam. He's not going to turn in a Brock Purdy in 7 days because Jordan Mailata is hurt. It's just not the way he plays football. So can it speed up a little bit? I would say he's 3.1 seconds to get rid of the football, which is bottom 3 in the NFL. In the 2022 season, he was 2.78. That's where you want him, 2.78. He's never going to be 2.2 like Baker Mayfield against the Eagles. That's just not his game. So, there can be improvement, but that's just not his game.
John, do you think you'll see what Vic Fangio did last week by bringing a little more pressure on a struggling quarterback like Deshaun Watson? Because I was kind of shocked with the pressure that he did bring. Do you think that you'll see this? Because the Giants have no running game whatsoever. The running game is really the quarterback, and it's really going to be about setting the edge here and keeping him in the box and not allowing this guy to get out in the perimeter because, very underrated. Daniel Jones can hurt you with his legs. He's a really good athlete on getting out there, and he can move around down there. John, how do you think Vic covers him, and how do you think he defends him?
Well, they're a little bit better with Tyrone Tracy, I would say, that's playing a little bit of running back more than Devin Singletary, a little bit better, not great. It's not going to scare you. And then Daniel's impact on the running game is legitimate, but they're more of a passing team when Malik Neighbors has been out there. I mean, if you look at, he's on pace to be right there with Puka Nacua for the most receptions in history in first 5 games. If he gets to 5, he'll be only the second player in NFL history to reach the 40 mark. And then you have Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. And, Slay was talking about that to me this week. You have a nice little sort of, big play guy, intermediate guy, manufactured touch guy. It's actually a nice little compliment. If you look at it, Daniel Jones actually has more passing yards than Jalen Hurts. Now, obviously, they played one more game, so that factors into it. But they
are ranked 12th, John. They are ranked 12th, and the Eagles are ranked 17th in passing. So, I mean, he has improved a little bit, like you said, because of Neighbors.
Yeah. Neighbors is good.
Yeah.
And I think people will get that. He is gifted. And they give him a lot of traffic because, they're in a similar realm when they had one playmaker with Saquon Barkley. Now they have one playmaker with Malik Neighbors. But I think they're getting a little bit better with the complementary people. Wan'Dale Robinson, as I said, he can do some things. Slayton can do some things. Tracy can do some things. So a little bit better than normal, I would say, coming in to face the Giants.
Yeah, Wan'Dale Robinson has a lot of catches. I think he's already up to 37 catches on the year through 6 games. Johnny Mac, what's the expectation for Saquon coming into this game? You think they rely heavy on him? You think they give him his chance to shine in this ball game as he returns to MetLife?
I'm sure they'll give him the chance to shine, but I've said it pretty consistently on the show this week. I think Joe Shane and Brian Daboll are going to get fired if he goes off for 175. So I think they're going to, and I don't mean that literally after the game, but I mean, if they get embarrassed by Saquon Barkley to that level, right, they're going to be looking for new jobs after the season.
John, like we saw in Tennessee after AJ went off on Tennessee,
exactly.
the GM got blown out.
Exactly. And you saw what happened with John Mara on Hard Knocks and all that stuff. I think they're going to be hyper focused on stopping Saquon Barkley, and that's going to enable you to go in a different direction, get A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith involved. So I think they'll try because they want to get him sort of a happy moment. But I think the Giants are going to be, probably to their detriment, ultra focused on stopping Saquon Barkley.
John, who's under more pressure, in your opinion, going into this game, Nick Sirianni or Jalen Hurts?
Oh, Nick. I mean, but Jalen's about 12 to 16 months behind Nick Sirianni.
Oh.
So, I mean, other than you're going to have, after a poor game, every quarterback in the NFL is going to get a lot of you-know-what. Other than that, but as far as real significant heat, yeah, he's about 12 to 16 months behind Nick Sirianni. Nick's got to win to save his job. And by win, I mean not just today. He needs to win the division, make the playoffs, win at least one playoff game. Then you can start talking about potentially being back. But he's on a real hot seat. Jalen Hurts, he's got this year probably and a little bit of next year before he's got a real hot seat.
Hey, John, all the years you've covered the NFL, have you ever seen a coach that's 37-19 that's been to the playoffs every year have to answer for his job? I mean, look, I know there's only 32 of these in the world, but John, Philadelphia supposedly celebrates winning. If 37-19 is not winning, and I get it, you have to have the Lombardi Trophy in there somewhere for everyone to compromise some of the things that he does. But John, have you ever seen? I've never seen a guy battling.
Yeah,
the ideology.
I had to go outside the sport, and I would say, and I brought this up with Zander, I would say Joe Torre. When he was
or Billy Martin.
When he was expected to win every single year, and if you didn't win the big one, it was a failure. Now the problem is with that comparison, they won five, whatever they won. They won 5. Here, there's this, I don't know if you want to call it a sense of entitlement or something of that nature, but I'm not sure it's equal to what it should be. But the expectations with the Eagles are so high that, 37-19, 3 consecutive playoff berths, 1 NFC championships, that's not good enough. I don't know where that entitlement comes from. They got 1 Lombardi trophy, but it's there. And yeah, no, it doesn't. Normally when you're 37-19 with 3 consecutive playoff appearances and a Super Bowl appearance, you're not on the hot seat. Here, you're in the hot seat.
Hey, Zander, just know this, Zander. Jet fans would take that in 10 seconds.
No, you're right about that, Big Sills. John, last question before we get your prediction and let you get out of here. Game coming up in around 30 minutes from kickoff. John, Eagles defensive front. The front 4 got going a little bit last week. 5 sacks last week, 10 quarterback hits on Deshaun Watson. Do you expect them to kind of continue to build on that and have a good day today? Giants don't have the greatest offensive line, and they are out Andrew Thomas today.
Yeah, that's a big loss. That's as big of a loss, arguably even bigger than Jordan Mailata, because he's a top-tier left tackle on this league like Mailata, but the Giants don't have a bunch of other good offensive linemen.
Right.
Like Lane Johnson's still out there. Landon Dickerson's still out there for the Eagles. The Giants have Andrew Thomas, and they've gotten a little bit better with John Runyon Jr. and John Michael Schmitz at center, a little bit better, but they don't have big-time players like the Eagles do on the offensive line. So that is a big concern for the Giants and how they're going to replace Andrew Thomas, who is a legit big-time pass rusher, and maybe they're the ones getting the ball out quickly. We'll see if Daniel, because they do that with Wan'Dale Robinson. They'll use those quick throws, and they'll do it with Malik Neighbors as well, and maybe try to get the yards after catch. So maybe they make more of an adjustment when it comes to that.
Sills, any other questions for John?
Good, man. I think, John, you think this is going to be a close one here today?
Yeah, I do. I think it's going to be very similar to last week's game against Cleveland. I think, the Eagles will find a way to win the game. They will persevere. They will win the game, probably 24-20, something up in that range, and nobody will be happy about the win. No style points. And we'll be back. We'll be back talking about it
In classic Philadelphia Eagle fashion.
They'll win, and nobody will be happy.
Does Jalen have turnovers in the game? Yes or no?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a Brian Burns strip sack early, and that's when they make the adjustment. Say, oh, we better help Brett Johnson.
Yeah, he's got a forced fumble already this year, so we'll see what Brian does. Johnny Mac, thanks for checking in today, brother. Enjoy the game. We'll talk to you at the halftime and on the post-game show. Thank you, Johnny Mac.
All right, thanks, guys.
Thanks, John.
All right, there's Johnny Mac joining us on the JAKIB Pregame Show here as we get ready for Eagles versus Giants. Big Sills, I'll tell you what, the more I think about this game, the more it's giving me a little bit of agita, my friend. That's what my grandmother used to tell me. I got agita, my Italian grandmother.
Priorsky, that's what you need right now.
I got agita, so I was thinking about this game, man.
That's right.
How are you going to block Brian Burns? And you just heard John say it. They don't even think they're going to help him out until they have to.
See, I think that's why I brought up the fact that I think that if that guy's getting murdered out there, I mean, do you put Becton out there? Do you slide Steen in? That may be an in-game adjustment that they make. By the way, too, I told you, keep an eye. Folks, Big Sills is telling you, 2 eyeballs to keep an eye on. Watch Cam Jurgens versus Dexter Lawrence and Fred Johnson versus Brian Burns. Watch how that was 2, because those 2 may be playing games in there. I'm telling you, Xander, that's going to be a great matchup, and that favors New York.
Yep, the game within the game, Big Sills, is what football really is all about. There's a lot of games within the game, and those are 2 good ones to watch there. We'll see what the Eagles' offensive line can do to handle those 2 players. By the way, I'll give you the stats real quick on those 2 guys. Brian Burns already this year, 3 sacks, 1 forced fumble, and 23 tackles. Dexter Lawrence at the nose, 7 sacks and 19 tackles. So next time somebody tells you Jordan Davis isn't so bad or he's living up to the 13th overall pick, just point to Dexter Lawrence and say he's nowhere close. Dexter Lawrence, 7 sacks already through 6 games.
No wonder that guy is like the all-pro interior tackle. I mean, he is just such a great football player, Xander. I mean, you look at his numbers too. Right now, you're looking at 20 sacks. How about this? As you said, 7 sacks, 43 yards in lost yardage, 5 TFLs this guy's playing at right now. And if you're going to project that out, you want to hear this? He's on pace for a nose guard right now for 20 sacks.
It's unbelievable how good
this
is.
20. I've never heard of a nose with 20 sacks. I've never, not even a guy like Aaron Donald played on the nose. He played a 3 technique.
Right.
On the nose like that.
And he never put up 20 sacks in a year, I don't think, Aaron Donald.
Never put up 20 sacks in a year. You're talking about one of the anytime you're over that number, you're in Reggie White's world.
Yeah, you're in rarefied air, you'll call it, with Dexter Lawrence. So if he continues up this pace, that's going to be tough to block for Cam Jurgens. I know he's had a nice start to his takeover for Jason Kelce, but he's got a big test today, and we'll see that. We'll have one commercial break, then Sills and I will come back, put our final touches on the game and our predictions. Let me get a super chat from Terry. Big shout out to you, Terry Hayes, one of our JAKIB Legend members, and also Jason A-Team is in the chat. Terry says, let's go Birds. By the way, Xander, my high school team won Friday night, 35-20. Love it, brother. Congrats to your high school. I think Birds win 28-20. Terry, you're right in my ballpark. I had 27-21 today for the Philadelphia Eagles. We'll get to Sills real quick before I get to the commercial break. I wanted to ask you. You see Hassan Reddick got the deal. I told you Drew Rosenhaus would get that deal done.
He sure did.
That dude is a great agent.
What the owner did? He waived the $12 million in fines.
Well, but here's the thing. I think there's got to be some pushback on that because I don't think some of those fines aren't waivable. I think
they're not. They're
going to tack it maybe onto his salary to kind of eat them,
or they're going to prorate it out, or they're going to defer those fines out. I don't know exactly. I'll know more by Monday how that works, but I didn't know because remember it said too in the release up to $12 million. That doesn't mean all of it. Yeah, so right. I don't think they're going to do all of it. By the way, real quick, I told you that Dexter Lawrence is on pace for 20 sacks. Brian Burns is on pace for 10. Can you imagine if you had 30 sacks between those 2 dudes?
Yeah, I think, by the way, Brian Burns started the first couple games with no sacks, so he's kind of found a rhythm here.
Last
in
three.
the last couple of games, right?
Yep.
So I think Brian Burns could get well over 10 sacks this year. That's a great player in Brian Burns, and I think he's better than 3 sacks so far this year. We'll see what kind of impact he has today. Let's get to our commercial break. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Got a great crowd as always. Appreciate all of you guys, over 400 watching on YouTube. Thanks to all of our super chats. Hit that like button for the greatness of Big Sills and Big Z. Just joined by John McMullen from MetLife. We'll be back in 3 minutes to put our final touches and predictions on the game from Big Sills. Back in 3, everybody.
He's blocked well and tries to cut through the middle. Oh!
Your gut says Miami is going to win, and you should take the over. Your gut also said your NFT selfies would only go up in value. They didn't. But your head is on Sports Grid and knows the QB is in concussion protocol. The backup has a 45 QBR against the zone coverage. The New York D has the most sacks in the league. So yeah, trust your head. It's smarter to be on Sports Grid. Score and save in Southeastern PA and Delaware with Colony Pools this football season, and let the experts close your pool with a custom Merlin safety cover in green for the birds. And if you join our Winter Watch team, we'll give you another 20% off, and Colony Pools will handle it all. Keep your tiles on your pool, not in your pool. Fly with Colony right now, birds fans. Visit flywithcolony.com.
I get scared sometimes.
Of a lot of things.
Joining in.
Decisions.
The dark.
The dark.
But I once heard someone say,
But as I always say,
it's okay to be afraid
as long as you face the fear.
and keep moving forward.
Wherever you are in life, count on the name trusted in insurance for over 80 years. Independence Blue Cross.
Hi everybody, my name's Jason Lombardi. I'm an inspector at DryTech. At DryTech we offer 3 major services, the first one being basement waterproofing. The second service we offer is foundation and structural repairs. And then the third service that we offer is mold remediation. If you feel you are having a waterproofing issue, give DryTech a call or check us out online.
Heading down the shore, have a ball once more.
Here, imaginations run wild and time stands still. Because here, you can find the best of the Jersey Shore, all on one 5-mile island. So leave the old you behind and get lost in the woods.
Wild, wild, wildwood day.
Plan your stay in the Wildwoods today.
EAGLES. Eagles.
Welcome back in, everybody, to the JAKIB Pregame Show as we prepare you for Week 7 in the NFL. Philadelphia Eagles taking on the New York Football Giants. A lot of excitement in the city of New York right now, Big Sills. The Jets get Devontae Adams and now Hassan Reddick back this week.
Whoa! Giancarlo Stanton last night? How
dude
about
is-
his ass?
How about Juan Soto? The New York Yankees headed to the World Series. A lot of hype in New York all of a sudden, Big Sills. Hopefully that doesn't bleed over into today's
41st
matchup.
time the New York Yankees will go to the World Series. There's only been 119 of them played. How you doing?
Unbelievable.
Okay.
Man. It really is unbelievable. My brother's up there. He's already texted me. I'm looking to buy some World Series tickets and bring you along, Big Z. So maybe I'll be at a game for the World Series. That'd be tremendous.
World Series at Yankee Stadium. How you doing?
So I was at the Phillies-Yankees World Series game at the inaugural season at Yankee Stadium in 2009.
Oh, the new place.
Yep, and I was 11 years old at the time. And I mentioned before on the show, my dad's a big Yankee fan. My brother's a big Yankee fan. They had me decked out in a Yankees hat, the big Yankees dugout jacket. I still have that photo of me outside Yankee Stadium.
That's awesome, dog.
Yeah, we'll see what they do this year. A lot of excitement, though. Sills, what are the keys to victory today for the Philadelphia Eagles as they prepare to take on this Giants team?
It's the key for them as it is in every single game. It's no turnovers. And let's try to work the clock here. Try to get the time of possession on your side. Don't allow Daniel Jones on the field. Again, and stretch out that football team by running the football. Zander, the same exact formula that they had a week ago, 25 passes, 14 runs for the quarterback. If you're in that ballpark in there, you're going to win. If they throw the ball, like I said last week, and think about it, if they would have thrown the ball 37 times, I think they would have had more turnovers and lost that football game. If they keep to that number between 25 and 30, they win this football game, and they should win it by a touchdown. I've got 24-21 Eagles winning this game in a very close one because I'm still not sold on the defense. Everyone is under the assumption, Zander, that the Eagle defense played well last week. No, they didn't. They played down to the competition of the Cleveland Browns. Where they did play well is that they kept them out of the end zone, which was good. You saw some pressure. Vic bringing
Congratulations.
pressure.
You kept the measly Browns out of the end zone. I don't want to live in
I get it.
My identity.
I get it. And get this. I think this is going to be more of a test because I think they're better than the Browns. Now, again, you've got 2 weeks before you're going to get Washington, Dallas, and Baltimore. Huss, you've got to start getting a roll here, a rhythm on both sides of the football going as you go into those games because you're not going to be able to play C- football and beat those teams. You played C- ball against Cleveland and won. You played C- ball against the Bucs and got killed. You can't go into this game playing C football because the Giants are going to keep them hanging around. And one turnover, Xander, this team is one turnover away from losing every game they're in.
It's so true. And here's my do you have any fear with not fear, that wouldn't be the right word for you, but me as an Eagle fan, it would be the right word. This team has no identity, Sills, right now through 5 games. Like, we don't even know what they want to do.
Hasn't had one in a year and a half.
It's true. And you just wonder, boy, even if they win today, hopefully they can establish some sort of identity. When I watch the Detroit Lions, I know what that football team wants to do. Whether they're successful or not, you know what they want to do. The Eagles, it's kind of a toss-up.
Like when you watch Baltimore, win or lose, Andrew, you know who they are.
Exactly.
They want to be physical with you, and they want to be physical with you on both sides of the ball. Win or lose, like you just said, you know what they are, okay? When you see the Eagles play, I don't know what they're trying to do yet. Remember what Kellen always says, trying to get a clean operation and find a rhythm. I don't think there's a rhythm on any side of the football right now, and that's pretty much why you don't have an identity. And again, the teams that don't really have strong personnel at the head coaching position, they suffer from this. Look at Dallas. What's Dallas's identity? Jerry Jones? What's the Eagles' identity? Howie Roseman? I mean, it's not the coach, or maybe some would say it is the coach because he's so inconsistent. So again, I mean, they've got to get a rhythm going in this game because they're coming into their schedule where you're going to have to play really great football.
Yeah, I mean, they have an opportunity here to get to maybe 5-3, 6-2 with the team.
Yeah, absolutely.
They got to find some of that identity, and we'll see what they're able to do. I mentioned my score prediction before the break. I will give it to you again. I believe the Eagles win this football game today, 27-21. I think the Birds are going to fall just short of 30 points. I don't know if they're there yet as an offense to get back to 30 points. And I believe this Giants offense isn't so bad. Malik Neighbors is back. That's a damn good player. So I have the Birds winning 27-21. I got one more question left for yourselves before we wrap this thing up. Over under 1.5 turnovers today for the Eagles.
I think there's 2 turnovers.
So you're going to take the over.
On the road, I think 2 turnovers on the road in New York. I think, again, like John said.
So you have 2 turnovers for the Birds, but you have them winning the game.
Yeah, in a close one.
Yeah.
Because I just don't think the Giants have enough personnel on offense, Xander, to beat them. Daniel Jones is going to have to completely outplay Jalen Hurts in
Yeah,
this
I mean,
ball
they have
game.
Devin Singletary at the running back, and they have Malik Neighbors. That's really it. I mean,
right?
Darius, I will say this about Darius Slayton and Wan'Dale Robinson. I know they're under the radar guys, and they're no Devontae Smith.
Well, they're better than the Eagles. They're better than the Eagles 3 and 4.
Yeah, I mean, both of them are up over 300 yards on the year so far.
No, they
Wan'Dale
are
Robinson has 37 catches through five or six games. I mean, that's pretty good for him. So they do have some pieces there, and the Eagles defense is going to have a good day. Let's get to one more super chat before we get out of here. Appreciate everybody today. Dort Gunner checks in. Eagles' identity is no defense, terrible QB play, and hope AJ can bail you out when Jalen just throws it up. That's a harsh criticism there, Big Skills.
But pretty accurate. Pretty accurate, okay? I mean, that's exactly how they closed the Brown game out, isn't it?
You're right. You're right.
I mean,
I thought Jalen had. I didn't think Jalen was.
No,
terrible.
he didn't. He didn't.
Yeah.
No, he was solid.
He was turnover free. I mean, he was through for almost 70% completion. I thought Jalen was all right last week, but great stuff, Big Sills. We'll talk to you on the post game show. Appreciate everybody being here. Big Sills, any final thoughts before we wrap this sucker up?
I can't wait to see how the fans respond to Barkley. You think they boo him?
Me too. That should be good.
I
think they boo a little bit because I think New York's a tough fan base. And I don't think it's booing of the player as much as it's booing of the jersey.
Yes.
Right? Like if an Eagle player put on a Giants jersey, you might not want to boo the player if he had great memories here, but you're going to boo the fact that he's wearing
if Brandon Graham had a Giant jersey,
Brandon Graham would never do that. But maybe do like a I don't know. We don't have any dudes on defense outside that get the second contract. Like if Josh Sweat went, I'd boo that dude into oblivion for crying out loud. But, now I think he gets a couple boos, but nothing over the top.
Absolutely, man. It should be a really great game. I think they cheer him first and then boo the hell out of him the rest of the game.
Yeah, I think that might be true. There you go. Good take there. Big Sills, great show. Appreciate everybody in the chat. Hit that like button. We will catch you guys on the halftime show. I'll be on halftime with John McMullen. We'll do a quick recap of the first half. And then we'll be live. JAKIB Postgame Show. Me and Sills to start it out. And Johnny Mack will join after the press conferences and the postgame conversation in the locker room. So he'll join us on the postgame show. Looking forward to that. Big Sills, great show. Catch you on the postgame show, brother. All right, man?
Catch you, brother. See you then.
All right. Thanks, everybody. Catch you next time.
EAGLES. Eagles.